Deputy Jacob DeSue of the Bradford County, Florida Sheriff's Office detects a motorist speeding and begins a traffic stop by turning on his lights and siren. The unknown driver notices Deputy DeSue and turns on their hazard lights, but doesn't stop. The deputy warns the driver.
Pull the vehicle over.
But the driver still doesn't stop.
Pull the vehicle or we'll put you into the ground. Stop the vehicle where it's at.
I'm not soft on the police on this channel, but let's pause for a moment and think about what might be going through Deputy DeSue's mind right at this moment. It's dark outside. He has no idea who's driving the vehicle. He has no idea how many people are inside the vehicle. He has no idea where they're going or what their intentions are. The deputy's fight or flight response is triggered and he is definitely amped up. Finally, after driving over a mile, the vehicle pulls into a gas station and stops.
Turn off the vehicle right now! Turn off the vehicle right now! I want to see your hands!
Deputy DeSue is ready for anything. Is someone going to jump out and take off running on foot? Are people going to pile out of the car and start shooting at his cruiser? And so he's got to be ready for anything. And then Mrs. Ebony Washington steps out of the vehicle. Stop. Back up. Why was Mrs. Ebony Washington running from the police? Well, it's night. She's got 3 kids in the car and she's pregnant with her 4th kid. She's on an unfamiliar road in a rural area on a dark highway, and Deputy DeSue caught her speeding. What would you do in this situation? Is it legal to continue driving if you don't feel safe? Ebony's husband thought so.
Your excuse means nothing to me right now. I don't want to hear it.
Up until now, I was kind of siding with Deputy DeSue and thinking that he was pretty justified in the way he was handling the situation, since he did not know what he was walking into when that driver was getting out of the vehicle. But now he's pointing a gun at a pregnant woman who's already stepped out of her vehicle and is clearly no longer a threat to him. I see these precise actions sometimes in my clients' own cases. Maybe for some reason they don't see the police officer's blue lights. Maybe they're impaired and don't realize that the police officer's trying to pull them over. It's natural for an officer to respond with force because they don't know what's going on at this time, especially before the driver pulls over. If officers think you are a threat to them or a risk of flight, it is normal for them to show force to try to control the situation. But now that Deputy DeSue knows who's driving, it's time to de-escalate the situation. And what does he do?
I've never been pulled over like this before.
You don't know how a traffic stop works?
Yes.
You don't know that a vehicle's behind you with lights and sirens for a mile. You're not going to move over?
I'm just telling you why.
I don't care about why. Just shut up.
He continues to escalate the situation further. It's not unusual for officers to ask you to step out of their vehicle for their own safety. We've talked about that before on this channel. It's called Pennsylvania versus Mims. And it's not unusual to be handcuffed if the officer thinks you may be a risk of flight or some kind of danger. In this case, he thought Miss Washington was trying to run from him. But now that the pregnant Miss Washington is in handcuffs, Deputy DeSue has situational control. Ebony is offering an explanation for her behavior, so Deputy DeSue can maybe understand that she was not trying to run, she was just scared, and she was doing what her husband had suggested she do in a situation like this. But instead of Deputy DeSue trying to listen and understand where she's coming from, he's frankly just being a jerk. This is a classic example of an officer's adrenaline continuing to escalate a situation instead of him using a clear, level head to try to de-escalate and figure out what exactly is going on here. Could Ebony do something different next time? What about you if you're in this situation? Unfortunately, under Florida law, and Virginia law too, Ebony could have been charged with a misdemeanor for not stopping for law enforcement. She could have had to go through a lot of legal expense to defend herself in court from what most people would agree would be an unjust charge. However, the law in Florida and Virginia and most states is very clear. The law in every state that I know of requires you to stop your vehicle upon an audible or visible signal by the police to stop. Failure to stop when signaled to do so can get you charged with a crime, even if you put your hazards on and slow down like Miss Washington did. In Virginia, Ebony could have been charged with misdemeanor eluding. If she had sped up or endangered other people with her driving, she could have been charged with felony eluding, simply because she was trying to get to a safer spot. People in most states have no right for you to keep driving simply until you feel safe. I understand there's a lot of tension these days between the police and citizens, especially in encounters, including traffic stops. However, you simply don't get to choose where to stop. If you stop somewhere the officer decides is not safe due to traffic or other people around, the officer can then direct you to another location to conduct whatever business you have. These laws can definitely vary by state because it is a state law question, so it's hard to talk about what you should do in any situation. But there's no set distance of how far you can travel before you venture into the territory of a possible charge for eluding the police. Keep in mind that some states, like Virginia, do recognize an affirmative defense to eluding if you reasonably believe that the person trying to pull you over was not a law enforcement officer. But that's not what we have in Ebony's case. She didn't have any reason to believe that this person was not an actual law enforcement officer. She was just trying to get to an area where she felt more safe, where there was more light and presumably some people around. My best tip to avoid an eluding charge is to simply pull over when you're signaled to do so by the police. If it's an illegal stop and they shouldn't be doing it, you can definitely fight about that later in court. But hopefully, by pulling over quickly, you can avoid having a gun drawn on you on the side of the road. Things worked out pretty well for Ebony. She was only cited for a speeding ticket on the side of the road, and she did not get charged with eluding. And after her children's cell phone video of the encounter went public on social media, Deputy DeSue was pressured by his sheriff to resign. Keep in mind that the sheriff's office indicated there were previous problems with Deputy DeSue, so in my opinion, he probably was not pressured to resign simply because of this one encounter. For specific techniques of how to handle traffic stops, check out my next video about when you should refuse to exit your vehicle. I'll see you over there. And remember, don't talk to the police.